The monofilm project came together a lot like a curated group exhibition where artists who may or may not be familiar with one another, but who work in a similar vein or who are thought of by a curator as a group to express an idea collectively. Eventually, about 10 of us wound up in Hawaii. Some of us knew one another either as friends, but there were a lot of new acquaintances to be made once the project got underway. Everyone's work is a relationship, sort of like a magnet at the center of it that refers back to this relationship that each one of us has with the ocean. So there's this moment that occurs in the quiet of the studio when you're focused, or in the sea when it's surging. This moment where everything slows down and sort of distills, and it's this moment where you lose your grip kind of unconsciously, and the momentum, this thing that you're cultivating, this movement sort of takes you with it. I think it's a feeling that surfers understand. It's a thing that artists understand, and you can't really remember how it happened. It's kind of like getting shot out of a wave all of a sudden.
I vai ola no I kahalu I mai no kia na ola no kueman o ya o kia la e mai no na kupuna ka puni ho io ia vai ola e ia ino ke ola o ke ia mahi mau tu kila o kwe manue ola e ia no koma kola e ola e papa ola o kwe manu no ke aloha mākou I kui muau no ke ola o ia wahi kanaka he nalu e ola ia ola ia no ke ola e ia hoi no ke aloha e kumu mai no ke wahi Ina he hewa ina he tui ina he no I ke komo ana no ia wai upuna ne no kola kola ne ia wai kai e na.
Even though like these ceremonies like Hawaiian culturally, it's like to build your foundation to keep yourself strong, yeah? Like you wanna have the blessings not only from the land for us traveling and doing what we do, but also the blessings from the ocean. So it's like a full yin and yang balance of as we are Hawaiians, we want to live balance as much as we can.
Oh, I was definitely so honored when he asked me to carry the bowl out there. I was so stoked.
Yeah.
I got scared and I was cracking the coconut knees. Team was like, okay, crack the coconut now. And I cracked it, and the first one didn't have any milk in it. I was like, oh no.
Oh, you just didn't like
Yeah, and then I gave it to him, he's like, try another one. I'm like, oh, got the other one. Paddling out there, just like radiate, just like, oh, it felt so good. And just being able to give that offering.
It adds soul to what we do, you know, and that's important because a lot of things in this world nowadays, you know, there's no soul attached to it. There's a meaning and a reason and a purpose for what we do.
I feel a little more human after that today.
And I was so pleasantly blessed that my cousin Keala, like he was the one to come because he's such a good role model for this community actually, because he learned from all the old kupunas, all the old ways, all the old chants, the old hulas. I think he took it upon himself to really focus on the stories of this island, this land, and this whole area.
Flowers on the wall, flowers on watched the whole digital age take over like a big steamroller. Been shooting from the water. Surfing has been a big inspiration in my life. I like the digital, it's super accessible. The only problem I have with it is the difference between the lights and the darks. There's no, like film, there's a much more forgiving range. You're either exposing for the shadows or the highlights with digital, and then you have to go back and post and kind of bring those out. Unlike the old days in the darkroom, I'm spending all my time on the computer, doctoring my images and bring them back to what I visualized or what I saw at the time when I was photographing, or the feeling that I felt when I was photographing. I love a new adventure. If someone says, let's go do it, and I got my camera and whatever other kind of gear I can stash. But with me, it's kind of happening all at once, like quickly. Like, I'm always thinking, I wish I had my camera. I want my camera right now. You know, I want to get this right now. I'm constantly looking at lighting changes and this, and you know, moving around objects and constantly studying. I don't have the ability to take what I experience through the day or the week and bring that to a format and just unload it. And the California thing too, you know, I grew up in New Jersey, and I came here and I felt like I was home. I felt that freedom. I love having that past, but I love where I'm at right now. Sometimes I'm in hairy situations when I'm photographing. If I get that in the zone where I have tunnel vision and that laser focus, and all it is the thinking brain shuts off and the intuition is full blown. That's all that's happening. I block everything out. So if I'm, you know, on the side of a mountain or in the water in big surf, sometimes I've taken some serious beatings because I shut everything off and I'm focused on that one moment. But for me, I get almost a similar high when I surf and I photograph. So when I can't surf, if I can't surf, photographing is the next best thing.
I was born and raised in Southern California and grew up basically around the ocean, surfing, bodyboarding, body surfing, at the skate parks. I think as an adult now, my paintings have a lot to do with kind of tapping back into that form of expression that I picked up as a child. But my paintings are really a constant just investigation of experimenting with materials, things that are characteristics indicative of Southern California. It's a lot about surface qualities. I work with a series of forms and I go through a process of layering these forms. Through layering them, they begin to abstract and to break down in their own way. So I work off of those cues. So the beauty of this Plex is that I'm actually painting on the back. I start by painting on the back, and then as I build it up, I flip it, and then the surface is ready to go. But a lot happens. This is all the beginning of the back side, and then the front side is actually where the painting starts to happen. This painting right here is already done. The back is it's all sealed and primed. But what's underneath that are the strokes and the shapes. So from this point on, can actually start on the surface of the painting. Just masking off another shape, but it requires a lot of thinking and its interaction with the previously laid shape. You have to kind of pre-think a couple steps ahead which shape goes under and over and how it's going to appear, because again, I'm painting the back of the plex, so what you're actually going to see as the viewer is the back side of what I'm painting. So I'm kind of painting in a backwards manner. And I know I want a curve to happen in here. And using the tape as a drawing medium and getting what you want.
And I really think that my quest through making art through all of the years was to see the transparencies in water. Because when I was a child, when I'd go fishing with my uncles, the thing I enjoyed the most was not catching the fish, was finding out where they were and seeing them and spotting them. So through the different processes, through ceramics and printmaking and painting, I never could get that transparency that I really wanted. And what you do is come off the side like that and cut that off the side. The hardest part is just trying to figure out where you're going to do that, because the eyes are actually way down inside there, you know. And then you make the mouth come way down, and then carve it. I had a Dremel and another saw to work on that. And then this is like a saw tip. And you can bring that in and clean it all out and sand it up, and you put all this paper in there. Really a lot of fun. Especially to, you know, reinterpret the tikas. Like, I really don't understand any of why all of this filigree is on there. That's why I wanted to wait till I got here to the island, is to work on them. So I wanted to get all the inspiration from when I was here. I brought these two different kind of woods. This is from Tony DeLapp's Scraps, artist in Costa Mesa. And this is Llyotan wood, and this is high density foam. And I started carving on this wood, and it's just too difficult. I'd have probably only got, you know, through to one piece. So what I did is I did the high density foam, so you could really carve it quickly, and I'll show you how easy it is to cut this stuff. Like, I made these little files. Look at how fast that can sand off. So I made all of these, you know, different tools to cut in, and it makes lines. You can, and then you come back with a sandpaper and do that. So it's sort of like the same materials that I would use at home, but certainly, obviously, the inspiration is really different.
California.
Yeah.
Yeah, we moved here in like 80.
I was like 3 months old.
84.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then
who's older?
Me. He looks older.
You look older. Yeah.
Acts older.
I'm the baby.
I don't know what kind they are, but they live in that tree. And every evening when the sun goes down, they start to swarm like that. So I'm not sure. There must be something in the air or the lighting that gets them going.
So I'm primarily a painter, but about 8 or 9 years ago I started making some sculpture that relates to the paintings that I make. And the paintings that I make are these sort of big, moody images of the surface of the ocean, because I've been surfing for most of my life, and it's a really important passion. And I've always been looking for a way to kind of align the outside world with the intellectual world, with the things that matter to me in the most direct, kind of earnest way, because I feel like if I can make a work of art and stand behind it and I'm proud of it, it's been stripped of pretense, it's been stripped of influence in an overhanded, overwrought way. It just feels like this thing that you can go, I made this, I'm totally proud of it, it's my deal. So in order to get there, you have to align the passion that's inside of you with the ideas that are crashing around in your head. So the paintings are about the ocean, and they're very quiet and meditative. The top of it looks like the surface of the ocean. It's a pretty accurate sort of undulating panel, but the sides, as you can see, are sort of reflective. It's built out of resin and wood, and it weighs a ton, and it looks like this block that had been hacked out of this black sea. So I thought, if you were like an ice fisherman that could go out and extract this perfect cube of crude oil, that's what it might look like. But also, in a more kind of romantic way, there's the reflection of the light across the surface of the water, which is at the core of so much of my output, whether it's a painting or a sculpture. So these are very highly reflective. And then, like a lot of the other guys here, it speaks to that surfboard culture where it's resin and foam and fiberglass, and that's a post-war Southern California thing with automotive materials and aerospace materials like fiberglass and resin and various all of that stuff is at your disposal if you live in LA and you work.
After 3 years of being in the water and 45 years of making it, you just kind of go, whoa, I can keep doing this stuff for a long time if I stay fit mentally, and that goes for surfing and painting. But obviously you have to readjust the physical part for surfing, but I don't want to quit either one. I just would love to live by the tides and the moon, that's it. I was born in Burbank, California. I'm a native Californian. Grew up out in the San Fernando Valley and went down to Laguna Beach to go to school down at UC Irvine. And it made me really happy because I was just thinking about the ocean. I hadn't been here, I'd been to Hawaii before. Anyways, it's sort of fun for me to have things come through the back end. And you just have this sort of feeling and you just do it even though maybe it might have been the middle of winter and it's raining. This is the stuff we kind of carry from for myself, 50 years of being in the water and surfing and just loving it. Everybody has a different kind of ground they like to start with. Some people like to, have real fat canvas. Some people like it smooth. I just found this stuff about 25, 30 years ago that I mix all together that just makes a real soft ground that I can make real raw or real thick. Like it's almost like plaster. And this stuff is really nice because it started out real thick. Like a fresco. Right now I'm going to put my apron on and get serious and spread this shit around. I like to have the edges almost raw canvas, so I just sort of stain them. And I think it comes from thinking about that's where the painting ends. So I don't take the gesso all the way up to the edge. I kind of leave them raw. It's red here. I'll start with the edge. The paintings are kind of about that.
Yeah, my grandfather, he was a huge influence on me for painting. He was an artist himself and a photographer and a surfer back in the day. I've used his sketches in lots of different painting sketches. So I did a posthumous painting of him after he passed. And I have this photo. It's one of my favorites. Grandfather did a lot of sketches for his planes, and he was a fighter pilot in World War II. And he did these copies of Varga Girls, and I scanned them in and I use them, photo transparencies of them in my actual paintings. So I've got these collection of a few handful of sketches that he did. I use them constantly because I have them in my computer and I can just print them on transparency film at will and add them to my paintings, so it's kind of like the legacy lives on. So these are all old family photos from my grandfather. That's the one I did the painting of. This is him and his buddy surfing, this 1937. I think this is Palos Verdes, actually. Well, actually, I think this was in the canals of Long Beach. Then these, I think, were all this looks like Palos Verdes to me. I don't know if he took these or if he was actually out surfing, because he was a photographer too, and a surfer. But that kind of looks like him right there. And there he is with the 1935 with the stingray that he caught. A lot of my influences are pop culture, advertising. I like a lot of old 40s and 50s pinup and girly magazines for reference, old surfing magazines, just for my collage stuff. But last night we had that painting session. It was a little odd because I never paint in such a small space with a group of dudes with no shirts on. It was kind of like Vietnam. It was sweaty. It was swampy. And it was almost like being back in school again, where you paint with a group of guys or a group of people, and you get really intense, and it gets really different because we're so singular and used to working in our own spaces, working differently, independently. And you kind of get used to that little cocoon of your own space. Yeah. And then to break out of it and actually paint and talk and have music and action and people all around and movement and energy was kind of intense, actually.
It was intense. It was like a hot box.
Hot box.
Right?
Sweat box.
Sweat lodge, art lodge.
Swart lodge.
Swart lodge. It's a swart lodge.
I felt like we were in Saigon waiting for another mission. Apocalypse
We
Now.
got to bring in a mirror in there. Someone's going to smash the mirror with their fist.
That rain was pretty special though. It doesn't rain like that down in town. Yeah. I mean, it does. It obviously did last night, but it's pretty rare, and it was pretty awesome to be out there. You know, we were stepping over each other's work. It was pouring.
It was pouring the entire time while we were working.
Yeah. Stepping over each other's work and fighting over who's DJing.
But I think the interesting thing about it was that everybody has a different process. And it was kind of, you know, usually I'm in my studio doing my thing, but like seeing everybody else work was kind of cool for me.
Yeah. Trying to work with acrylic paint when you and I both are oil painters, and it's pouring rain, so it's 100% humidity, 100%,
Made it troublesome.
Elbows and knees everywhere. Everyone's stepping on each other, things falling over, can't get paint on the walls. Yep. So it was totally confined and
out of our usual elements.
Yeah.
It's nice to have a big space, but working in those conditions, like you said, where we couldn't get paint on the walls, had to lay the tarp down.
I think it was different for me because I'm taking this time to kind of do things that I don't usually do, kind of experiment. So it was interesting, like grabbing graphite and paper, which I haven't done in 15 years. Trying something different.
Yeah. The levity of having people around you to break your concentration, and you're drinking beer and talking and changing music, and you're working sort of publicly or with a group, and so that brings a certain amount of levity to the practice. You're not sitting there having this existential crisis with every move because it's performative because you have people standing right next to you. But then at the same time, it brings out like kind of like lights a little bit of a competitive wick in you, where you're like, oh, well, these guys are working hard. That means I need to like work hard. So you work hard and you're very focused, but at the same time, it's kind of like anything goes because this isn't. Yeah, how serious could this be? We're in somebody's garage, and nobody has their materials, nobody has their stuff. It's so
displaced that you have to just improvise. I like the way that it was going kind of in opposite. The currents were kind of pushing against each other.
I was born in Toronto, Canada, and settled in LA in the mid-70s. I do use acrylics. I also use automotive paint. I cover them in epoxy resin, which helps keep the light in. And with the automotive paint, it really bounces the light in there. So if you look at them really closely, they have like flakes in them. You know, the stratums, the horizons are just so big when you look at them. I think they just pay off and they show their breadth better when they're a little bigger. When I'm in the studio, I like to work, and I just go all in and I focus, and then I need a break, and then I surf, and that clears my head. I'll really work, and I get to a point where I have to surf, you know, to bring my head back, because I'll just start getting lost. So this is the chameleon flake, which if you can see in there, what it does is it flip-flops. So if you look at it from one angle, it will be one color, and if you look at it from another angle, it will be another color. If you look closely, I don't know if you can see, but it's kind of got a green-blue in there. By the way, this little thing is like $350. Not something to practice with, you got to use it sparingly. That's why I put the resin on top of the paintings, because it will hold the light in and just bounce it back and forth so it really pops.
I lived on Oahu, and I got my first computer, and since then I've been kind of just really exploring kind of deeply a little bit different take on the use of computers. And it's all about sort of finding my own pono, my own balance in my art practice. So besides teaching, I also make these generative artwork. And just like surfing, when we pull ourselves out of the sort of chaos of the world and let go, I try to have my art practice approach that too. So where I'm designing digitally, I may also try to kind of make things with my hands. There's a big DIY movement now that you really try to make things with your hands. And here I'm making a project with some students called the Dynamic Walk. It actually feels like you're inside of a barrel, and we fabricated all those pieces on a CNC machine, and when you walk through it, the whole thing flexes, so it feels like things are dynamically changing around you, just like the world of surfing.
Go to a surf shop and you hold surfboards and you look at them and you look down the line and you pick them up and you smell them and you put them on the ground, and it's just like they're such fetishized objects. Like when I was in high school, I would draw waves because I was such a god-awful student that I would sit and draw surfers, and I got really good at drawing guys doing, you know, it was the 70s, so they were writing single fins, so it wasn't that radical. They weren't doing errors, right? But I would draw this stuff, so to this day, I still will sneak a little wave into a picture. Like people don't even know they're in there. Like I'll stick little surf scenes and stuff in there. Surfers tend to gravitate toward art making of some kind, and artists tend to gravitate toward surfing.
And I don't know what that is, but there's some sort of weird freedom. When you go in your studio and you're like, something's going to happen in here. I love the fact that you can just reinvent everything constantly here. And artists do it all the time. And when artists come here from Europe and New York, a lot of times they'll just be like, Jesus, you know, nobody's looking over my shoulder. I can just change who I am completely and reinvent the whole damn thing. Any one of us could just change everything about ourselves right now and everybody'd be like, that's cool, let's move on. You know? I've been in the water for my whole life. My dad was a surfer and I've lived kind of all over the world. I've been kind of struggling my whole existence as an artist to find a balance between the kind of the mystical and the real, the unseen and the apparent. So these are these sort of digital images that are taken from different sources that are manipulated and painted on and then photoshopped and then blown up large and then mounted on board. And then I go into them somewhat symmetrical, but not completely. They get more and more kind of complex, like fractals. But in the background are these sort of mundane things like rugs and chairs, and it looks like somebody's living room, so there's sort of this combination of two things. I mean, there's digital activity in them, but I see them as straightforward paintings because they actually have a lot of paint on top of them.
My process, basically, I like to just use everything, kitchen sink. You know, I use everything from Crayola crayons to, oils and just spray paint and collage and just kind of slap a lot of stuff together. My work is really bright, colorful. I mean, I'm kind of attracted to kind of like darker, seedier things sometimes. I really like to deal with like mortality, skulls, and, kind of deeper issues of life. But to me, it always seems like a lot of bright colors always come through. And I grew up over by Mahilani, the Kalaoa area, so kind of this elevation has really influenced me so much. Just these like, everything from these koki frogs going off right now to just like green trees and just colorful. And I've tried to kind of escape it sometimes, but my palette's always just kind of come back to just vibrant, and I like to just kind of just go really loose and just come from the heart. My practice is I go in my studio and I just, start just moving around and just kind of pushing the brush around and just seeing what it comes out to, and freehanding a lot of stuff. I'm really attracted, as you can tell by my style, the really naivety, childlike art. Family's everything, kids are everything to me, and I paint with them and I watch them paint and I try to like emulate that, but my hand just as an adult, it just doesn't go there, and I watch them, do the things, and it's just, magic happens when the kids do art. I really love kids art, it's just like, kids just attack it, they don't even care, and it always comes out so good. You always try to like kind of search for that. Just try to shut your mind off, but also like your intuition just kind of comes in alive. But it's so hard, but seeing the kids do it, they got it down.
Yeah, I guess there was a shark sighting, a blacktip.
We didn't see it.
Pretty standard.
Steve saw it, one of the girls saw it.
Yeah. They're out there.
They're out there, that's what they do.
Last night we got chased out of the water by a shark. Little Miley yelled "shark" to her dad, who's fully out of the water on a stand-up board, and I'm up to my neck. And she yells "shark" to her dad. Dad, shark!
But doesn't tell the guy who's swimming. Like,
no, it doesn't say a word to me. You know? I had that like over here. So then I assessed my position. I look around. And I'm like right in the middle.
Yeah.
Try to swim to the rocks.
I wonder what it was. If it was like a black tip, because black tips are always cruising around there. But if it's like, they don't really. I mean, I guess they could take a chunk out of it, but they don't. But not like a tiger.
But once that name is in your head, though.
Yeah, and you're out there just treading water, and it's getting dark.
So I gotta tell myself, all right, just be cool, take it easy. You know, don't make it.
It's pretty not very easy to do.
What's that?
It's not easy to tell yourself to behave when you're.
Yeah, it takes practice.
Yeah.
I've had plenty of practice to tell myself to be calm out there. My drive to get out there and photograph and to catch, surfing and is stronger than the fear of being attacked by a
Oh, well,
shark.
you're being occupied. Yeah, it's a different kind of occupation because you're focusing on it.
Right. Right, exactly. When I first got here, going out during the day, going down, swimming down, looking at the reef, seeing the lay of the land helps, up here. What trips me out too is talking about how these guys, when they came from Tahiti to Hawaii and the star system, that they're so used to seeing their entire lives change. They saw the North Star for the first time, and they're watching it every night, and it's not moving.
Yeah.
It holds position.
Pete was asking me the other day, he goes, well, what'd they do during the day? Well, I don't know.
Pray.
I guess they would just... This is the Hastings Plastics paint tint, which is really the backbone of a lot of the work. It is the brightest, most beautiful colors. If you add yellow to it, it gets that incredible neon. Put the catalyst in here in just a second, catalyze the resin. We do a real hot batch because it's so thin and it's so short amount of time that we want it to go off, that we make it really hot. All you want to do is just slosh the resin around everywhere, where it gets evenly everywhere as much as you can. Once you get it everywhere, if that's what you intend on a piece, like if you see the way it starts dripping and clogging up, you may want that, but you'll have to wait a little bit before it starts going off. This resin in here, I use the 249A surfboard resin for this, and I figured that resin will probably be the last resin produced for the general public. And you always have to think about materials when you're making art, what the longevity of that material is. As we all know, we'll get used to things and we'll go to our supplier and they get rid of the material. Now, you see all of the variation in the transparencies. This really has to do with the ocean in particular, surfing. When you'd look down and you'd see in the water, you'd see a fish go by, and they would turn and you see their bellies, you see their sides. And in the green one here, we kind of get that through here a little less on this, but you get more of the atmospheric conditions that I was trying to get with that. Now, the first one I ever made of these, Dwayne Valentine snatched it up. He had to have it, and I felt that was a tremendous compliment. Because actually the work, Dwayne doing mass casting resin, Peter Alexander and those guys, and Doug Edge, there wasn't much space or room for me to do anything instead of kind of hollow cast them myself. On this particular piece here, I wanted to get a black, but I wanted to get a silver black, and it is a platinum pigment that you put in. The piece up behind me is a chrome illusion piece. It changes colors, but with this platinum piece, I wanted to have it look like clouds and then waves like in the ocean. It has the texture, the look of like shark skin. And I've made a few pieces that I want it to look like shark skin because it's such an incredible texture. It has that iridescence, but yet the tooth to it.
So I just laid in these forms, and what's going to happen is they're going to go on the back side of the white, and you can see there's a sense of these forms overlapping and creating this sort of negative space. So this is going to get masked. The next step is actually just flowing kind of brush stroke paint area down, and then I'll pull this up and it'll be the negative of what I want to be left out. And then the magic happens when you actually turn it over and you see all the stuff on the back.
That's where the girls are.
You know, with this, you want it to seem like it's one quick, intuitive pass. So you got to work it and work it until it's actually doing what you want it to do. I still got a lot of paint left over on my broom. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to my paper piece, and I'm just going to pull this wet paint right across the paper and just see what it does.
That's where the girls are.
I've retired this pot on the left because I mix up my primer, which is actually sort of a plaster, but this one I had to retire because it's so heavy. It probably weighs about 10 pounds, so this is my new one. Hours and hours and days and days and days of mixing and grinding. So you're here at an auspicious moment, the changing of the pots. Every 15 years. This is Greta, she's a new arrival. I know. She was down at South LA shelter on the red list, and they thought she had a broken leg and she was going down, weren't you? Yeah, so Deb, Vina, and Rebecca saved you. You know, she's gonna live with us and everybody else. Oh, look at that, she was painting today. Did a little white with her paw. I have her work on the edges. Nice touch. Just raw polyethylene foam, high density, medium to high density. I just do these rough drawings. I have to carve the negative mold so I can pour the resin in, and then once that resin's poured in, I'm going to carve up a couple of these things. This one, get in there and we'll just rough it out. I use totally primitive tools. You got to kind of go in there and score it a little bit. Be careful not to cut your fingers off. And this stuff is so easy to shape that, like the paintings, I always start with a bunch of mistakes, so I don't care about that edge because I'm going to make all this bigger anyway. My favorite tool, just sort of rough it. This is really a lot like shaping a surfboard in reverse. I don't have any interest in making a mold and making a million of these things. It's just not the way I want to do these. Because it's such a common shape, I want each one to have just a unique little difference depending upon what I do right now. This is just a piece of an old surfboard, but you can see, you know, I can sit here and it's pretty soft. This stuff, I can't even move it. This is super expensive, super high density. Same foam, it's just a matter of the density, and it's all a matter of how they cook it up and do the recipe.
I grew up in Hawaii, and it's not like we threw that word around, not like aloha or mahalo, you know, but it's, I know what it is, and it's a pretty sacred word, and, you know, Tahitians use it, Hawaiians use it, but it just means like the land, everything, it's like God. How do you define that, you know, but it's like, I know what it is, and I felt it before, I think what it is. Been around the world certain places, and you feel get those same feelings you get like in Hawaii. Right. At least I do. It's like God. It's your interpretation of it.
I agree.
You know,
to me, it's like a universal energy.
Yeah.
And there's places like Hawaii where it's just really apparent. You know, you can feel it. There's no doubt. There's no question.
Yeah.
If you're somebody who is open to that type of thing, you feel it.
I just knew it from like growing up there, and I just kind of like, it's a feeling to me, you know, of just like the land and the feelings you get from there. Hawaii operates on just a different level of certain places.
It feels like,
you know, but you can go to other places like France or Spain, or I get those feelings there too. But I mean, Hawaii is a little different. I just think Mana exists. I feel dumb talking about it because someone probably watching this is going to be like, right. No, you idiot. Right. It exactly means this. Yeah. That's Hawaiian, you haole. Beat it, kook. Just like art.
Exactly, just like art.
Like 99% of the people will look at this and be like, this totally sucks.
Right.
And then my kids will be like, Daddy, that's rad.
Right,
just like, yes.
Exactly.
Yes.
Maker culture is this idea where beyond, say, the arts and crafts movement, beyond hot rodding culture, it's the idea that all design is accessible to people, especially given new technology, and together collectively we'll push in a sort of open fashion and see where we can take design. We also have other machines like 3D printers, laser cutters, and various other forms of accessible fabrication techniques that really can be at your home and not just in an academic environment. So this is a CNC milled Hawaiian surfboard called an alaya, and I was investigating finding a technique for making them in the computer and then milling them out and then hand finishing them. So I'm sort of trying to find best way to do it. I haven't heard of anybody using CNC technology to do so, and if you look down this, you can see this sort of double concave on the bottom. It's Kealakekua Bay. Made a topography and then investigated some interesting CNC milling techniques. Here's one that's in one of the stages of painting. It still needs a clear coat, a medium density fiberboard. Here I've explored 3 different techniques of creating the same 3-dimensional geometry. Notice there's a lot of references here, of course, to the ocean and waves. Here you see a bathymetry image of Kealakekua Bay, and then I take that information and start thinking out loud in terms of a sketch. So I'm getting the ideas out of the digital realm, going into something physical where there's a lot of hand-eye and sort of brain connection here. And then I move into 3D software, and here I'm using a software called Rhino, and I've basically imported the image, started making it into a 3D model, and I also make it into a toolpath where I'm going to test out what the look of the tooling will do. So I'm simulating multiple effects, and before I CNC, I at least have a way to kind of double check and embed some interesting effects into my work.
Close all the windows, lock the door tight. Call the old man, he'll know what to do about this threat. He proclaimed, turn off your TVs, turn off your radios. With no reception, no detection for you and me.
The great things that LA is all about specifically, because we were talking about this, there's a willingness here to experiment and a plasticity to LA because of the entertainment arts, right? There's this kind of like build it now, film it now, let's move on to the next project.
So this spot over here, this is actually it's a surfing heiau. You know, there's heiaus all over the Hawaiian Islands, and some of them are, you know, they're sacred places. Some of them are for burial grounds. Some of them are, you know, old haules, which are houses. This one pertains to surfing. So this whole area, Keaho right here, is like a big fishing village, and there's, you know, surfing right here. And yeah, it's easy to take things for granted when you're around it a lot. It's easy to be reminded of the goodness that's here. Living in California, you know, you get so caught up in your whole deal over there, and It's not like I forget about this place, but it's like, you know, out of sight, out of mind, but it's always inside of you. I mean, this place is, growing up, it's so special to be a part of this place. Then the older you get, I think the more you realize how special it is. And, you know, when you're a kid, you're just like, yeah, fuck, I'm barefoot, I'm on the rocks, beach, yeah, water's warm, yeah, this is normal.
And you look back at your childhood and you go, wow, that was a really special time.
Yeah.
And just growing up, you look back at your childhood and the freedom that you had, and like, well, that was awesome. I used to ride my bike to the beach, and I had all these opportunities, and
yeah,
everything was cool.
Well, my direct experience had nothing to do with surfing. It had nothing to do with Polynesia. It had nothing to do with the Pacific Ocean whatsoever. I mean, we were back and forth between the East Coast and Europe, and my parents thought food and museums was interesting, not the beach.
How pretty, huh?
Yeah, it's not bad, huh?
Yeah. There's a very strong energy here that is really good. It really comes down to a quality of life. I think I could live here. I don't know if I could live here forever. Does that make sense?
Totally. I got it for sure.
There goes your light. Here comes the sun.
Such a beautiful place. About to go subterranean here. It's amazing. Just feels super close to nature. It feels good. Feels really good. The mana.
They're just all echoes of natural forms.
Not putting them out in the world, but I've been painting volcanoes before I even knew I was going to come on this trip. Wow. Yeah, so that may show up later. But yeah, I've been making all these weird volcano drawings, paintings.
This is sponge time. I don't think about.
Yeah, you just
anything.
take it all in and see how it comes out the other side.
Everybody does it their own way. I take pictures, or some people take notes, some people make drawings. I just sponge it and take pictures, and then if it comes out later, fine. If it doesn't, that means it's not important.
You put in the recycle bin a lot of junk. So.
But people always ask me, what were you thinking? I said, I wasn't thinking anything. But later on, I thought about that.
Yeah, it comes later.
It's a delayed, it's like a
total,
delayed.
Yeah, it's delayed. I think a lot of people think that you see something out there and you go, oh, here's a leaf, I want to paint this, just, you know, and I don't think it works that way for a lot of artists. You see a leaf, you look at this, you look at that, and then it kind of filters in, and this stuff comes out, which is the process, you know, like the alchemy of making art.
It's the smell, it's the current in the air, it's the visuals, it's the temperature, all that stuff makes sense to me. It's the land, it's here in Hawaii they call it the aina. But it all makes sense because we're all connected. It's patterning, it's layering, it's form over the form, it's texture. It's there's a movement, there's an organicness to it. It's a monochromaticness to the color. I think that relates a lot to my work in some form.
Out of the ocean here looks crazy. The river, coming out the river mouth, the brackish water turns into salt water. Looks like there's a short wave right here that's really powerful but really short. And this whole coastline is just rugged with the power of the wave just beating on it. It's really like almost magical. I feel like a little goosebumps about it right now.
It's just beautiful. It's just so soft, moist. It's perfect. Oh my God, look at that.
The circular nature of this blown glass here just reminds me of surfing and being in the barrel.
And even right now, it kind of feels like drops of water hitting my head. And I kind of want to take my shirt off in here and just really go for it. I think we might do that later.
You know, what I really like about the Plex is that it has this sense of space, and my work has always been about space and the illusion of depth, having forms and layer forms on top of each other. Now you have a physical depth that actually you get physical shadows in the painting. You're seeing what's happening on the backside, you're seeing what's happening on the front. You can see how thick that paint is. I think it has evidence of every painting I've made over the last 15 years on it.
Most serious artists eventually get to a kind of personal, autobiographical kind of a practice in their studio where they're trying to depict the things that matter to them. But I think what we're trying to say is that in Southern California there's a lot of things out in the environment that may affect that inner vision, whether it's going into the ocean or car culture for the people that are in this room, for example.
Music, everything.
Music, it's a response to this landscape, and it's a landscape that David said is constantly in flux. It's constantly kind of adding onto itself, and things are eroding and getting forgotten, and it's very kind of impulsive. I suppose the opposite of that would be an artist whose practice is contingent on a set of ideas that are just contained within an art movement, if that makes sense. Like you could make paintings or sculpture that respond to paintings and sculpture, and are very entrenched in this discussion, right? We're forwarding this art discussion. And I think what we're trying to say here is that a lot of the stuff that's out in the world that we experience winds up getting filtered through our, gets filtered in and then manifests in the work that we make. So that's what I mean by like a landscape. You open Thrasher magazine, and guys are doing hand plants and busting airs on ramps that they built, or they're riding skate parks with names. Like we didn't have any of that. We would find ditches and curves and just improvise and make it up as we went along, and it was like a all-consuming. It was my entire life for like four years, and surfing here, it's 360 days a year. There's waves, so the tug of California and Southern California lifestyle got at me like in early puberty.
I think that this thing has a lot of disparate elements that are becoming sort of tied together now, trying to make sense of them. I kind of edit things as I go along. I don't edit myself a lot. I just do what sort of comes naturally, and then later I either show the piece or don't. I don't edit myself in my studio very much. Not everything has to be shown, and most things aren't shown. It's a little bit nonsensical, but it may make some sense soon. I'm not sure. I actually work on a number of things at once in my studio, usually between relatively loose, freeform stuff, more controlled things. And this is just a big experiment. It's got everything but the kitchen sink on it. It's got resin and linen and fake mink and digital imagery. And now I'm going to lay down a big slab of orange paint right into this thing. Straight cadmium orange right on top there. And these things sort of vacillate between abstraction and representation, which seems to be where my work seems to be going lately.
That should be surf or die till death. That's what California's license plate should be.
Not the Wyland tail. You seen those ones? Or the rainbow? These are killer. Yeah, they're fun. I like those. Just bust them out real quick too.
I've never seen you do that.
Really?
Cut out skulls like this.
I think these are the.
I've seen you do the surfer cross.
So this is my little surf shack.
I like to collect lots of things and put them in here. All the stuff from my travels from like Indonesia, Bali. Keep my surfboards. I relate this stuff to my installation stuff, my installation process where I collect lots of different things. So this is kind of an extension of that. This right here was actually an old piece I did for a gallery show that we just put out here. And it actually accumulated some wasps. I like to use a lot of televisions in my installation work. Everyone grew up with television, especially in Southern California, so I use kind of surf imagery and girl imagery, put the transparency film onto the actual televisions. This one's smoking right now. Awesome. Total fire hazard. So I use a lot of different stuff. A lot of the stuff I collect out of dumpsters and people give to me, or I go to yard sales. I like to collect old bats, old spindles, and then I paint on stuff. I'll make assemblage pieces out of it sometimes. I found this old mannequin in the trash, along with these old Disney ears. Use lots of silkscreen imagery repeatedly, kind of part of like that whole Andy Warhol process thing. I've used this motorcycle a million times. This is actually a photograph of my grandparents in here. This is a photograph that my grandfather took in World War II.
All right, here we go. Let's do this.
Yeah, I can't wait to see it, man. I don't know what it looks like, but I hope it's not a gorilla holding a beer. I got the monkey on my back when I was 19 or 18. I drew it myself. And I think the TNC monkey.
Thriller Gorilla.
Yeah, Thriller Gorilla was my inspiration. And I actually drew it myself and took it to the tattoo artist. And
there you go.
Yeah.
I was taught to go by feel and go by energy. So all the tattoos, I try to tap into the person that I'm tattooing. Just hanging out with you in a couple days, feeling your mana, your energy, and all that stuff, man. Dope, you know? So yeah, a lot of the designs on your arm, on yours is like Tahitian base and stuff like that, you know? Like more of a mixture, but unlike the designs like on Kaula's one is more straight Hawaiian, straight from this island, you know? Like these ones, the spear tips, makahihe, and the birds. And then the spear tips coming down with the nihomano, the shark's teeth. It represents, you know, like fierceness. And we come from a line of warriors off this island. And luckily, we were like straight descendants of Kikuapio. And yeah, straight blood. And these are the designs representing of who we are in a more Hawaiian traditional form. Cool stuff, huh?
Yeah.
This is a big automotive car sprayer, down to littler guys. And then, but primarily I use the little guy, just because I can do, I got more control. Stratum basically means horizons, or a number of lines. This is usually how I start a painting, is get a basic line down. Just let the painting take me where it's going to take me. resin and my paintings, dust is the devil. Try to keep the atmosphere contained as much as possible, because if I get a piece of dust on a painting, it'll ruin it. If I get dust in the resin, it's ruined too. So it becomes very costly if you get contaminated by atmosphere or dust. In some pieces, I will use automotive clear coat, where I spray the clear coat on, but this is epoxy resin that I lay down, and then it's a painstaking process. I mean, any kind of dust, or anybody who works with automotive kind of stuff knows that just atmosphere in general, if it lays on it, the painting's ruined. So I have like this plastic room, and I kind of walk around about this fast, trying not to stir up any kind of atmosphere that'll land on the painting. So I'll lay it down even with the foam brush, and then I take a torch, and I get all the bubbles out, and I cross my fingers and hope that it's good, and it doesn't cost me more money to do it over again. Sweat.
We need a mat or a lighter. All this over that little thing? No, right? That's all this over that little thing right there. Jeez Louise. We're gonna need a mango and 16 bottles of.
Just don't look.
Over here from this side.
No, dude, you're staying. Can you feel that?
Everything's like perfectly exposed.
Give him a bottle.
Yes, I need a bottle.
Glass of wine is classier with the flower.
Man, I'm gonna need this.
Yeah.
The way that you dig in my foot.
Nurse, I need a
it makes me
scalpel.
take a second look.
There, get it over with already. Call it a night.
That's a classic right there.
Oh, centipedes too, yeah.
I got a moment. This is just a photo still from a picture from a movie. Just weird random stuff I find. I use it as sort of fodder to throw little narrative elements into the work. I got all this shit all over the floor, and just take it and schmick it on there, smush it on there. And that just knocks it down a bit, and dirt is the greatest stuff on earth. Gold. Knocking it back a hair. It's kind of sticking out too much for me. As far as making money and making a living, you know, if you want to get rich, don't become an artist, because there's much better ways. But it's pretty damn interesting way to live, I'll tell you that.
This is the mother piece for the corns. And you can see it has the transparency of, I used a plexiglass structure for this. It's quite heavy. I took the original mold from this, and then I made 26 additional molds so I could do the maze project. And all of these start out, all the mold pieces I have, or the resin pieces, start out as structure, like down in the studio. And usually on a chrome illusion, what you do is you put it on a black base. But on these particular pieces, what I did is I used dark colors. I used purple. This is a green base. And so it gives you almost another color. And this is the backside of the structure. And this all comes out of Lewis Sullivan high-rises, Brian Hunt airships. But I put a twist into it to give it some movement. Okay, this is the sweet potato we had when we did the blessing. I got cooked up for the blessing, so I did a drawing of it before. And Hawaii has really inspired me to get it back into drawing, which I had kind of abandoned for the three-dimensional work. I did a pretty cool drawing of a bird here and a flower and some kind of make-up, fish underneath with some, this is like a chalice. I don't know why that's under there, but I really enjoyed doing those. I forgot all about how enjoyable drawing was. It's that two-dimensional lie that they always tell you about, versus sculpture. But you can really get back into it and enjoy it. These little drawings are paint chips from a hardware store. So what I did is I got some really great colors, and for grounds, for background, because that's kind of the dilemma for me, is you start painting on a white, or drawing on a white background, and it really is bothersome to me. So I got these different pieces and use these color chips, and it's almost like velvet painting. You don't have to concern yourself with a background.
Carl was always really incredible because he would come in and do these visits with me in my studio, and Carl was always asking about my kids and what was going on and what's the latest. He always had this really incredible way of talking about life experiences. What I got from that was that at the end of our discussion, he would always wrap it around to the paintings. And I didn't really figure it out till he left. And I thought, that guy, man, how your paintings are basically inspired by all these things that happened during your day. They were a lot like children. In the beginning, it's just clean and it's clear and there's nothing there. There's no marks, there's no color, there's no shapes, there's no textures, nothing. And it's very similar to, a newborn, an infant. And much like a painting, you start to give it attention. What's the best way to bring this painting to life, as you would with a child? What do I need to do with this kid? How is it going to be educated? What are the priorities? And then same with the painting. You make a move, and that's kind of stuck with me. One move dictates what the next move is, and so on and so on. And with the child, it's the same thing. At a certain age, as the child goes on and gets older, just like a painting progresses, it needs less and less. And then at one point, it's getting closer to being done, and it's going to tell you, hey, leave me alone, I'm done. Because they basically are, reflections on how you would basically raise a child.
Smell the salt in the air and the sea. Shells by my calculations. I'll get where I'm going when I'm ready to. It's my decision and it's up to you. A daydream cooler than 50 pounds of ice cream. By my calculations, life would be easy if we all got along. I don't understand what we keep getting wrong. Oh, when I'm finding my way, I'll still pay you for my mistakes. If I should die here before I wait, don't let the last drops that I do taste be salty. I'm never gonna come down from this place. I ain't never gonna come.
So that's what they look like finished. That's the end product once it's up on the wall.
Never gonna come down from this place. I ain't never gonna come down from this place. Oh no, no.
I had the existing skate decks, and I thought of superimposing the two, and the whole thing came out of Charles and Ray Eames, because basically that guy invented bent maple, which is the technology that every skateboarder today uses and takes for granted. But they were made for splints back in 1941 or 42. He made them for the Navy and the Army. It was bent plywood. So that was the very first thing. Before he made the Eames chair or anything, he made splints. And it was plywood, laminated, pressed, and formed into leg splints. So I just did a take on it out of skateboards, surfboards, everything else, and superimposed my sort of a surfboard shape inside of the skateboard shape. And so the duplicity of the two shapes, which are very similar but totally different. So it's no longer a skateboard. I mean, you could try to ride it, but it might not work too well. just trying to get the basic outline, and then I'm going to change and get rid of this line so it's, see where it gives a nice gradation there. I'm going to pull that in by hand, but have to do it by hand. I'm just trying to get the surface real flat, then it can get polished and we can finish it up. This has to get stirred for about 5 minutes, because you really have to disperse the hardener really well. Oh, nice, look at that. The nice part is the shadow of my hand. That's the good part. That's the color. If my hand was white, it would be bouncing right back in my face. Kind of an organic root beer called sassafras. It kind of looks like ginger root or something, some sort of tea or something. There we go, look at that, root beer.
Trying to make a bunch of different things kind of coalesce in the work. I'm just kind of moving the material around until I get a sort of an indication of where I want it to go. They're not really just straight up process paintings because I'm after a picture, and so you have to work to make the picture, as opposed to just doing this sort of like, you know, expressionistic abstraction that was utterly non-representational. I'm trying to bring these paintings to a place where they're busted monochromes. They're like almost monochromatic paintings. They're almost flat paintings. Non-representational. They have pictorial depth and they have space, which is pretty much at odds with monochromatic abstraction. But they also speak to the experience of being in the ocean, because they look like they're sort of immersive paintings where you look at them and you kind of go into them. So I'm trying to make them spatial the way that being in the ocean is a spatial activity. These pieces are made out of fiberglass and resin, which are surfboard materials. So they felt like materials that should be within my reach. They also have a tie-in with a tradition of LA sculpture using those types of materials. The guys from the 70s and the 80s making fiberglass planks and cast resin slabs. Again, those materials, those plastics come from surfing. These are little acrylic paintings, sort of studies that I made on paper to reflect some of the colors that I was seeing in the water. The water in Hawaii just really doesn't look like anything I've seen in California. So that's a much redder, purplish kind of a blue. I've seen it in Fiji and I saw it in Sydney as well.
I love that picture of her. This was for the band The Dirty Eyes, but they never used it. I did like 4 or 5 record covers for them. Huge influence on me growing up was Ed Keenholz. I first saw his piece Solely 17. I was in high school, and my mom took me up to Museum of Contemporary Art, Los Angeles, and I saw it, and it's like some creepy guy in some $1 a night hotel room type of deal, Bukowski style. I liked it. It made me laugh, and it made me like, whoa, what is this guy up to? I started doing more installation type work, so then I came back to really looking at Keenholz, just being enthralled by his work.
So this piece is based on a kind of symmetry, like a fractal-like symmetry where things are sort of folding and almost like origami. A lot of ways they're like signage, actually, kind of these big pop signage. And this one ended up oddly looking like a face, like a tribal mask, which was really not intentional, which is sort of strange. I think it relates to things like surfboard logos, sort of 60s signage. Up here are two film stills of a surfer riding a wave in Hawaii. And then I put text in, and the text usually comes somewhat out of my head. It comes from other sources. But the texts are a kind of way of contradicting some of what's going on in the piece. So they throw a kind of a little bit of a monkey wrench into it. Some of the stuff that I've been influenced by is people like Philip Guston, who I think made radical shifts in his work during his career, which took a lot of guts. Again, somebody like Frank Stella, who also has made radical shifts in his work. And people like Mike Kelly, who is just, to my generation, is hugely influential. He sort of redefined things, I think, for a lot of us. Early on, Rauschenberg is somebody that a lot of artists are endlessly trying to live up to, because he made things when he was in his 20s that artists are still fussing with today.
There's this really important hill that is sort of the focal point of Mono, where Captain James Cook was killed. Sort of a center of power, if you will, on the Hawaiian island. You'll know that I sprayed it from the bottom direction, and it still is able to kind of pick up the grooves from the CNC machine, still showing process when you view the work instead of coming to a final finish. You can see it's showing up here in the way that multiple tool paths are sort of combining with each other. And you know, when I think about my work, I really am interested in not just pushing the boundary, but being able to get there and go beyond it, and then come back to a point where it's accepted by the public with just a little bit of a jab in the side.
Okay, these pieces are really inspired by my heritage, Norwegian, American Indian, Cree Indian, boat builder, fisherman background. And what I really try to do with this is get like the keel and the hull of a ship, but then I really try to do the movement. And then I add in the physics, where this is binary star system. But over in the Madam X's, you get the idea of the shape of the ships. And it's such a sensuous shape. Brancusi, stainless column, comes into this, and the Madam X, of course, is to the John Singer Sargent's Madam X, the painting. And in this piece here, you can see it's all sectioned out. So it has all the different sections. It's like movements. It's like still frames. It's like cutting and moving around in smaller.
This is what blows my mind. I mean, this honeycomb is perfect, hand-drawn, gridded, no wiggle. In 2 hours, that's a great drawing.
Kind of transformed. You look so different now.
Is that a beer gorilla on your shoulder?
Yeah. Is that Joe Cool's
So what I try to do is try to feel like energy, and then that way I could get a storyline of the person that I'm tattooing. My main thing through the ocean is not only for recreation and happiness, but it also to pikai myself, or cleanse, because the ocean is a cleanser. You know, in the work I try to do is take things at such a spiritual level, and of course you open spirit of the person you're tattooing. The guardians, you know, Lono, Kane, Kanalo, and Ku is the 4 gods of Tahiti or Polynesia. But this round design is like the Honu shell. It's like represents spiritual protection and stuff like that. And then this one is Ihope Vahine. It's a happy sky, a happy life, you know. And then this one, usually it's straight like this, and this is the traditional way, but this is my take on it, because I like to make it look like boom, you know. This is called Tehe. It's a design of rising to greatness in your life through spirituality, and if you usually go from inside, you're usually making the right decisions in your life. This design represents the spirit. This is the bamboo. It's like the bamboo, it's so strong, it bends, but it's unbreakable, you know. It's like it represents a spirit that is bendable and strong, but even in big storms it can still weather and handle. This one is the design of good journey, and that's the best one, I think. It's called Kawila. Kawila is like the lightning in Hawaiian, you know, and like just like the name Ka'el, in life you be fierce, you know, you strike it fiercely, but you also be humble and stuff, you know, like humble journey. So rising to your greatness, strong spirit, achieving, and protection. So that's what I threw on you. Yeah, thanks, huh? This is sick one.
Oh, sorry. Action! Don't talk about the art.
Yeah, it's a lot of ink. And these men.
Beer's good.
Killing the shit.
It's worth it. Oh, shit.
Are we done?
I think artists live a long time because they just kind of have one more thing to do. Like, I'm going to be out of here in 2 days. I'll be back in my studio and I'll just be out again. And this is my wife, and it'll drive her insane. And I'm just trying to make sense of the world, and the world doesn't make a lot of sense to me. But then it does, and then it doesn't. You know, it does right now, but tomorrow it won't. It has no end. And we've all have kind of salt water in our veins, and it ends up in the work in odd ways.